Alright everyone, welcome back to Planet Zoo. It's already episode 4, I honestly can't believe that I've already been doing this for about a month. And I'm still super inspired and I'm always eager to get on, start building and making content for you guys. And to celebrate that, we're starting on our 2-episode project which I teased in the last episode that I'm referring to as the Ruby Basin. But I should probably talk about what I'm actually doing here on the time-lapse. As the name hints, this is supposed to be the swampy kind of area of the zoo that's in lower ground and just covered in lakes and little ponds like this. So here in part 1 we're going to be adding the hippo and the greater flamingo. Now we don't actually have to include the greater flamingo, there is no conservational concern with that animal, but the hippo is vulnerable so I had to include that animal. I think you might have been able to catch a glimpse of it in the last episode, or actually not the last episode, the one we did the Red Pandas, episode 2, and I really liked the shape of those little ponds for some reason. I'm really not sure why, but because we have the river going into the waterfall now down into the hippo's exhibit, I wanted to connect those ponds into the giant lake that we have next to it. So at least from the first glance it kind of looks realistic, like the water would actually flow into the pond and lakes. I did something pretty interesting here in the lake and the big dam wall that we've got to the side of it. You'll see I'll make a start of it nearer to the end of the time lapse, but you won't see the actual finished product until the showcase at the end of the video, because the water mechanics and special effects don't actually move while the game is paused, and I could unpause the game because we had like 12 flamingos and 4 hippos roaming and they could escape the habitat at any time. It's always difficult making an exhibit with 2 different species in it, because you have to take into account both of their needs and requirements. Luckily for me, the hippos and flamingos require pretty similar things, such as hard shelter and plant coverage, but unluckily that plant coverage isn't very much, which of course is not how I play the game. So by the end of the build, they're not super happy with their habitat, but they're happy enough so they won't break out, they won't get upset or stressed or anything like that, but it's just not perfect for them like the gharials was. Considering this whole region of the zoo is called the Ruby Basin, there really isn't much that is Ruby. So you can see me here designing a little kind of shelter area for viewing the animals. These are kind of just going to be dotted around the entire basin. There's no real use to them except they add a bit of red and a bit of colour that's not just green and blue. I've cut it out the time lapse because I didn't end up using it, but I did play around with a couple other ideas, much more spherical kind of things, like little gazebo shelters that you could stand under and view the animals if it was raining per se. But yeah, they didn't really fit the build, so you guys will never see them unfortunately. And here you can see me duplicating these pieces and placing them alongside each other, so you can see what these are actually going to be used for. Like I said, they're really not useful, but they add a bit of colour and they look pretty neat. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how they turned out. One of the main things that I'd love to see Frontier add to Planet Zoo is more aquatic plants, because right now all we really have are some water lilies and they're not that great. They're definitely useful and they work for what I want, but I've got this huge pond here and if you go under the water it looks terrible. I really hate it. Thankfully, I never really have to go under the water, and to be honest, after building this, I'll never have to do it again. But a fun fact about hippos is that they can't actually swim. They can hold their breath for about 5 minutes, but their bones are actually so dense that they can't make themselves float on the water. Instead, they have to kind of bounce or walk along the bottom of a lake, and this lake is actually quite deep, which looks somewhat ridiculous when the hippos are moving because you can see them from up above. but it's not something that I can really change now, so I've just got to live with it. As much as my initial impulse was to shove this exhibit full of plants and trees to make it look like a lush jungle, I couldn't do that. It is supposed to be a swamp, and like I mentioned earlier, the flamingos and hippos really don't like overgrowing brush, so I opted with just a few mangrove trees, lots of reeds, and some cecropia trees. Cecropia? Cecropia? You know what, that might just be one of the weirdest words I've ever had to pronounce. Regardless, they look cool and they're from the South American pack, so it definitely makes sense to include them here. As I mentioned earlier, this is me trying to create the kind of foundation work for the waterfalls that are going to come out the dam. It went through a few iterations and you won't get to see the final product until we go through the tour, but you should at least be able to get a glimpse of the kind of idea that I was trying to execute here. But we've got a couple minutes left of the time lapse here that I'm going to catch up with you in real time so I can give you a proper tour of this huge build. We've pretty much doubled the area of the entire zoo in this one episode. But yeah, I'll catch you in a couple minutes. Alright everyone, we're back in real time. Now, I know we didn't build up here in this episode, but I do think it's important to show you guys how incredible this view looks. As you walk up to the edge and this pathway down, you've got a great view of all the little trees out there and the pathways, the statue there in the middle, the red pandas on the right hand side. Just above anything, this is what I'm most proud of. The view is great. I really love it, and I didn't think about it before I was building, but it looks great. And of course, there's some ugly stuff on the right hand side there, but just don't pay attention to that. We don't care, it's fine. But as we move down the pathway here, we can go to the left and take a look at the finished hippo exhibit. Actually, I lie, it's not completely finished. There's a couple things I need to touch up, but if I'm being completely honest, I cannot be bothered. Rock work can get really boring if you do it a lot, and I spent about an hour doing that wall that you can see across the lake there, so I'm going to save that for a later date because I just can't be bothered doing it right now, and to be honest, it isn't that important anyway, let's be real. Up on the left you can also see the little Ricey's Fonts tribute thing up there, which I think is great. I want to try and maintain that view from down here, and you can also see I implemented those waterfalls coming out the dam, and over there you can see these kind of red cubes. I'm not sure what they're really supposed to be, but they look quite cool. It's really just an art installation. The same thing as the mosaic that we've got up there by Ricey's Font, but the view from here is also pretty great. Up on that hill behind the rock wall and above their little cave, that's all going to be covered in foliage. I think I'm going to put a staff area up there, because the only other options really are just to cover it in trees and stuff like that, and I think that would be kind of stupid to do when I can use it for something that's actually useful, like a staff building, and keep it out of the way of all the exhibits that are going to be down here in the basin. I also thought with this area being the Ruby Basin, it'd be cool if we had these, I think they're called maple trees. Yep, Japanese maple trees. So since they're kind of hot colours, or red, yellow, orange, whatnot, I think it'd be cool if we kind of dot those around every exhibit. Of course, this idea came from the one that we have in the red pandas already, but moving along this path, we can walk under yet another one of these little red things that's up at the red pandas. There's also a nice bit of foliage down there in the middle between these two paths. Something that I'm trying to maintain throughout this entire region of the zoo is these kind of double paths that we've got going on here. I think it just adds a bit more character to it and kind of separates it from the rest of the zoo. I'm going to try do little gimmicks like this that maintain different areas. You'd also see I added a few corner lines around the area. As I said in the first episode, I want to try keep these more around water. So there's probably going to be a lot of these in the area. I think I also added some sort of red panda exhibit. But yeah, once again, it's just trying to keep that theming of why plants are where they are. And the keepers couldn't actually reach most of the feeding stations, so I made this little kind of stone bridge. It's a bit goofy, but you know what? It works, and I think it looks pretty cool. From up here, to be honest, it's almost unnoticeable. Like, if I didn't point that out to you, you might just look at this big view and not even notice it. And just ignore that path. It's disgusting, I know, but you can see there's a little staff area up there on the ridge already. Of course, that's going to look a lot better in the coming episodes, but I simply couldn't be bothered today. I need a lot of staff to maintain these flamingos and hippos. I mean, there's a lot of them. I think we've got 4 hippos and a good dozen flamingos. So yeah, they really do require a lot of care, and they like crazy. But for the most part, that's all we've done in this episode. We've got this entire area to fill over the next couple. As I mentioned earlier, I'm definitely going to have pygmy hippos. I've also got a surprise exhibit, which I'm not going to tell you about yet. And I'm thinking of including something like a Nile monitor or a Komodo dragon. I think they'd look better in a more jungly area, but I think they'd look better in either a more jungly area or along the river, like they would be in real life. But again, I'll see how that goes. I haven't got anything nailed down yet, so you guys will see when it comes. So I want to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button and check out the rest of the episodes in the series. If you want me to add any specific animals or have any suggestions for the stuff to build, then make sure to leave them in the comments. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!